Hello guys, welcome to another video. Rimuru x Eminence in Shadow by elite3532. Chapter 19, Third Paw of the Sun rising over the lawless city. In the White Tower, the monarch Yukime slowly drank her tea over a peaceful scenery. Her mind wandered around. Her past was still haunting her. Her own mate husband who was once kind and sweet killed her whole family. That night where he mercilessly decimated the fox-beastkin race just because they were a weak race. At those dark memories, her magic suddenly rampaged out of her body, her eyes shining in rage. Yukime. I swear I'll kill you. Rimuru. Drink some tea, it will calm you. Yukime. Yeah, what? A hand suddenly reached out for her. She didn't even realize someone was there. In fact, she couldn't understand how this man was here. The White Tower is easily the best guarded tower with dozens of women watching for any possible intruder. Yukime's room is on the highest floor. Yukime. Why you? Rimuru. Don't worry, I'm not here with ill intent, instead I have a proposition for you. Taking his seat without asking, Yukime couldn't believe how carefree he was. Though the memories of the Red Tower were still fresh and she knew this man, Rimuru Kaganu, wasn't someone to mess with. Yukime. You know. Intruding on a stranger, a girl's room on top of that isn't very gentleman. Rimuru. I don't care, so will you listen or should I just leave? His tone was neutral but Yukime could feel the threat behind. He was basically saying, don't waste my time, talk or die. Some sweat appeared on Yukime's forehead as she nervously covered her mouth with her fan. Yukime. Yes, what does this gentleman want to discuss with me? Rimuru. A small deal. You see, I learned from some good source that your biggest wish has something to do with the head of a certain leader of the Great Commerce Alliance. The fox woman's eyes widening, she instinctively brought her fan to Rimuru's neck, stopping right before it could harm the blue hair. Rimuru remained unfazed, not bothering himself to dodge or counter, a smile creeping on his face. Yukime. How do you know? Rimuru. That's for me to know and you to ignore, anyway I can help you with that. Their eyes clashing for dominance, Yukime was clearly not convinced, so Rimuru slowly brought his hand to her fan and shattered it. The action startled the fox woman who backed away taking a battle stance. She was a mage and a strong one at that. The confidence she had in her ability was extreme but she knew she could defeat the man in front of her. Her mind started racing trying to figure out a plan of attack or just fleeing, abandoning everything she had builded until now. Rimuru. Calm down fox, you are no match for me and this includes magic. Also running away isn't a solution. His words made sense. He was able to find Yukime's darkest desire, something no one should be aware of. So finding her would be easy. Also he is a spellswordman of the highest rank, his natural speed is far superior to hers. Yukime. What do you want? Her eyes narrowed, she could only watch Rimuru smirk and approach her. His hand slowly grabbed her chin. The two's eyes clashed once again. Rimuru. You sure have a lot of hate inside you. Perfect. I'm even more convinced now. You'll be the perfect ruler for this place. Yukime. What? Bringing his face closer, his eyes shone brighter. Rimuru. Let's see, I'll kill Geron for you and in exchange you rule the lawless city for me. Yukime. Rule the lawless city? Rimuru nodded, he then let her chin go and stretched his hand up, a small magic circle appearing. Rimuru brought out something from a sort of dimensional storage spell. Yukime's eyes widened, her skin turned pale as she recognized the object. It wasn't really an object but a human's head. Juggernaut. The monarch of the Black Tower and tyrant. It was just his head with still fresh blood dripping down from his neck. Rimuru. Now that the Blood Queen is gone, the tyrant too. That means the ruler of the White Tower is the only one remaining. Yukime. You mean? Rimuru. You are the master of the lawless city now, so let's start a partnership. You'll work for me and I will help you with your revenge. The proposition was clearly one a devil would make. In either way, Rimuru was the winner. Yukime too realized that if she refused, this man would surely kill her and make someone replace her as the lawless city ruler. Yukime. You are ruthless, aren't you? Very well, I shall follow your every command from now on but... Rimuru. But, Yukime, you shall bring me Geron's head first. At her cold words, Rimuru chuckled and nodded. Rimuru. Fine, if that's your condition then expect a bloody package in the next 24 hours. After that, he disappeared the same way he arrived. No wind, no presence, Nothing, he just left. Yukime. What an overpowered individual. Well, at least it seems my long lifetime goal is done. She stared up at the horizon. The sun was midway up. A small smile formed on her face. It wasn't a kind one. No, cruelty would be an understatement too. She was grinning like a fox, patiently waiting for Rimuru's end part of the deal. And sure, her expectations weren't misplaced, as not even 10 hours later, a strange box mysteriously made its way in her room. When she opened it, a waterfall of blood covered the clean floor of her room. Not only the piece of meat inside the box was ripping in its owner's blood. Yukime could also see the piece of art Rimuru had made. All indicated that Geron was tortured. His body members were deformed to the point you couldn't recognize which was the hand or the leg. Only his head remained normal. The woman was startled by the massacre, but soon her sadistic grin returned. She grabbed the head by its hair and lifted until Geron's eyes were at her level. Those eyes of his were still open with no light. Yukime. That's what you get. Karma always has its way, Geron. I wish I could have killed you with my own hands though. She gripped her hand through his pale face, her nails slowly piercing his skin. Behind Yukime were her foxtail, growing onto the number of 9. Her fur turned silver as she unleashed the power she had reserved for this revenge. Now she was savoring it, slowly degrading what was left of this man. Coming back to Rimuru, he was now making his way toward his next destination, the former capital Alexandria, Shadow Garden's operation base. His hand and clothes were still tainted with Geron's blood as he didn't bother to clean it. Rimuru. One thing done, huh? The world is going to shake a big time. Geron was a scum, but he was still in charge of the direct rival of Mitsugashi Company. Someone who held great influence through the Great Commerce Alliance. His death will naturally unbalance the world, as Mitsugashi is now the only master of this market. This is why Rimuru was not going to Shadow Garden, after they are the secret owners of Mitsugashi Company. Rimuru. The fate of this world is now here. If Shadow Garden submits, then everything will go down smoothly. If they choose to resist, then... His thoughts went darker as he finally arrived at the former capital. Immediately, Beta arrived with 3 numbers behind. As if they were expecting his arrival, they had taken some precaution. All around the sinister forest, dozens of Shadow Garden members were watching out for his every movement. Though Rimuru didn't really care and let them do, he now could use all his former life power, including a total mastery over everythingness. Along that, his energy and magical power are the double, if not the triple of what they were back when he was Rimuru Nebula. Rimuru. Well, what a warm welcome I get, Beta. If I may, what are you doing here? At her words, everyone tensed up. It wasn't just those present, but even Alpha and the other shades who watched through the newly developed camera device tensed up. Rimuru. Lead me to Alpha, I won't repeat myself. Eta Pav. Why is he here? The moment I feared has finally come. I already expected such a situation to happen after Beta came back and explained how Rimuru helped us get the Blood Queen's blood. By helping us, he was clearly telling us that he wasn't done with us. Maybe the other didn't understand it like that, but I did. For years, I studied with him. No one knows him better than me. And right now, from what I can see in his eyes, he isn't here to negotiate. Beta. What should we do, Alpha-sama? We suddenly heard Beta communicate with the new device. It's something Shadow-sama had explained to me. He calls it Takiwaki. A way to communicate at a distance or even through a wall. Pretty useful. Alpha. Let him in. Fighting would just lead to our doom. I looked around and saw everyone nod, but even now, Shadow-sama wasn't there. I know it's wrong to doubt him, but it has been a while now. I started asking myself if following Shadow was really the best choice. We fight against the cult of Diabolas, and for that sacrifice must be done. After all, we fight for a greater cause, but now I started realizing how off Shadow's actions were. His actions are often illogical, yet at the end it gives good results. From this you could conclude that Shadow is a genius. But then, when you see Rimuru, you see what a true genius looks like. His actions all seem off-chart with deeper meaning. It isn't a mess like Shadow. With this in mind, I'm actually starting to ask myself, is Shadow really what we actually see him as? Zeta. Eta. Wake up, Eta. Snapping me out of my thoughts, I looked up and noticed that everyone was standing, and at the doorframe. Beta was there with Rimuru. His eyes turned to me for an instant before shifting away. His presence was different from the one he had last time we talked. Third Pav taking his seat on a random chair, The tension rose tenfold. No one dared speak as Alpha and Rimuru started a glaring contest. It continued like this for several minutes before Rimuru decided to break the silence. Rimuru. So where is Shadow? I expected him to be here. He asked without looking away. The seven shades looked at each other for a moment before shaking their heads. Alpha. He isn't here at the moment. Anyway, what is your business here? Rimuru. Well, let me go straight to the point. I finally understood what Shadow is really, so I'm going to make everything right. Alpha. What? Rimuru smirked at their confused reaction, but before he could talk more, someone else entered the room, or rather he appeared in the room with a trail of shadow. Shadow. Alpha. I need why he started talking but stopped midway realizing who was there. The murderous glare Rimuru gave him was enough to kill someone. The seven shades tried to get up and greet him, but the bloodlust Rimuru released paralyzed them. Rimuru. Well, it seems the main actor has finally shown up. Shadow. Rimuru. Rimuru. So was it fun? I mean your stay in this world? Upon hearing his words, Shadow's eyes widened. Rimuru had found out the truth. This man already knew the existence of another world inside his former life's memories. Not only that, he had now entirely analyzed the data with everythingness. And coincidentally, Sid has a part of him different, and very similar to the demon or the frequency of the other world. It wasn't the same, suggesting that Sid was from a different world than where the demon or came from. After discovering this, Rimuru then remembered how Sid survived Nova's attack. It was because he couldn't delete information and data that was unknown to him. Sid was an otherworlder and someone who reincarnated into his little brother's body. He was the same, perhaps he took the original owner of this body. But in contrast to Sid, Rimuru cared about his family while Sid just played around. Rimuru. I always wondered how you guys managed to develop technologies like these, or how you found out about the cult of Diabolos, considering the fact that you started operating when you were still children. Those words were spoken muting all others. The silence was suffocating to the point sweat started dripping down the less composed person. Rimuru. But now, I finally know. All this is just a joke for you, right? Getting up, Rimuru slowly approached Shadow. He had clearly seen through all his facade. He wasn't the great leader or rebel he was. He was just a kid who fooled everyone with his delusion. Shadow. Fu. Kukuku. Kahahaha. Finally reacting, Shadow started to laugh. Everyone turned to him as he gripped his face with his dirty hand. The craziness and madness could be heard in his voice. Rimuru. It seems I was right. Closing his eyes, Rimuru felt relieved internally. If he was wrong, then what he was going to do would follow him the rest of his life. Alpha. What does this mean? Rimuru. This man you trusted, you all trusted, played you all. He never knew or suspected the cult of Diabolos. All he did was spout a bunch of nonsense which luckily ended up right. What he said was unbelievable, and naturally no one here wanted to believe that, aside from Ada, who already had prior doubt. She is the smartest here, someone that even Rimuru had to recognize. And probably the only one who has the potential to surpass Rimuru in one field. She immediately started to think about Rimuru's words, and like a revelation, one of her two worlds shattered. Ada. So that's it. Everything that happened to me and the other girls originated from pure luck. While she was completing the puzzle, Shadow continued to laugh. Alpha. Is that true? Shadow. Ha 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 ha. Slowly, doubt started to rise in the Shade's mind. They still wanted to believe in their master, but the way he suddenly started to act made them hesitate. Epsilon. Shadow-sama, you should tell us that he is lying. Epsilon sounded desperate. She and the others didn't want their whole world to break. All of them were dependent on Shadow. And right now, their world and reality was collapsing as Shadow gradually stopped laughing, letting a heavy silence fill the room. Rimuru. You Shadow. That's right. Well, it seems you decided to break the script. I guess you got enough of this game. His behavior and tone totally changed, and his words definitely managed to break the Shade's heart. Alpha. So that means. Shadow. Well, it seems all of you decided to stop playing around. I guess you got bored. He was totally ignorant of the feelings of the girls. He thought they were still acting with this whole plot he had created. He thought they just got bored and decided to withdraw for their acting. And this nonchalant attitude really started to piss off Rimuru. His right hand was covered in a white aura. Rimuru. I see, so you really don't care. His front hair covering his eyes. Rimuru didn't wait any longer. He took a step forward, the space bending to his will. In a single instant he disappeared and reappeared a few meters forward. His hand pierced the one he had once considered as family. Rimuru had his hand stuck in Shadow's chest. All magic resistance and nullification were off. Blood started gushing out as no one dared move, too shocked by what they were seeing. Shadow. Rimuru. Die, you imposter. You should have never come into this world in the first place. Using everythingness to destroy his soul, Rimuru didn't show any mercy until the body lost all its color. Rimuru. Life was always unfair, but this world didn't deserve to have such a scum. Using millions of life, even your own subordinates, for your fun. Saying that, Rimuru slowly got up again. His hand ripped the remaining of Shadow's chest, leaving a gaping hole. You could see the fresh organ and intestine laying in the dead corpse. Rimuru stood there emotionlessly. Nothing but the fresh blood covering his hand dropped on the ground could be heard. After some time, he finally turned toward the people present who stood there frozen, not knowing how to react. Alpha. Alpha was stuttering. Her usual composure totally gone destroyed. Her hand gripped the hilt of her sword. Her body reacted on its own, but Rimuru bloodlust stopped her. Rimuru. I know, you girls are lost now. You don't know how to react. You are subconsciously thinking of revenge and see me as the worst devil. His words had great weight on the girls. He was right. Right now they just wanted to go and kill him. Aside from Ada, the girls were all at the peak of their rage. Rimuru. This is why I decided that. Stretching his arm, even more magic poured from his body, definitely freezing them on the spot. No movement, the air or even molecules could move freely now. The feeling was ragged, as even breathing wasn't allowed to them if Rimuru didn't want to. Rimuru. I will wipe all of your memories of Shadow and Sid Kaganu. At the end you all will work for me. But don't worry, I won't do anything to you. Fear slowly started to install inside the girl's eyes as a bright light started filling the room. Rimuru. You all did nothing wrong, but Shadow already corrupted your mind too much with his idiocy. At the end you will still accomplish what you all originally wanted, so your memories can leave in peace. By altering the data forming an individual, Rimuru could literally make them a whole new identity. New memories, new life, new personality and more. Everythingness can be referred as the manipulation of a script, while nothingness is purely the destruction and erasure of the script. This might appear cruel as he is literally playing with multiple living beings' lives, but as he says, things that need to be done must be done. Seconds later, all the shades fell on the floor unconscious, aside from one girl. Ada. What did you do? Ada looked at Rimuru with a confused expression. There was still no fear inside her, rather than that she tried to understand the intention behind his action. Rimuru. Shadow Garden is a powerhouse in both technology and power. If I didn't do that, you guys would have surely ended your own life. There was no guilt in his voice. For Rimuru, these girls deserved better, but in a world where only the strong come at the top, the feeling of guilt can lead to death. Rimuru. You all are way too valuable. That's why I decided that at least you'll all be happy in this new life I give you. Ada. Then why didn't you alter my memories too? Rimuru stared at the brown-haired elf for a long minute, before sighing and closing his eyes. Rimuru. I know you're smart, and I still think of you as my first genuine friend. Ada felt a tingle in her heart. It was true, Rimuru was the heir of the Kaganu family along with that genius. Pretty much his entire childhood revolved around his family. None of the other kids around tried to befriend him. All at best admired him from afar. This is why when Ada appeared and started to hang out with him, even if it was just to share their experiment and knowledge, Rimuru was happy. In his former life it was the same. A prince with strength beyond what the world could actually withstand. Ada could be said to be his first friend in both life. Rimuru. That's why, I want you to make a choice. Will you follow me? If not, I won't show my face in front of you ever again. Pain could be heard in his voice. He seriously hoped that Ada won't leave. But if she ever decided to end her own life because of him, Rimuru would make sure to the one taking her head. At least this will atone for some of his sins. Ada. I see. The girl looked down, a realization expression on her face along with a slight smile. Ada. You know, I always proceeded to think like that. Shadow Garden is my priority and I shall disappear with it. This was basically a confirmation for Rimuru. He bit his lips and turned away, ready to leave. But before he could take a step, he felt a pair of arms hugging him from behind. Ada was shorter by a lot, so she could only reach his stomach. Pressing him tightly, Rimuru could only wait for the girl's next words. Ada. But this was before. I thought that as long as Shadow was there everything would be fine, but all of us were blind. So please let me be with you. Silent sob could be heard as Ada tightened the hug. There was no romance there despite the obvious feeling the girl had. She knew she had no chance now. After all, Rimuru's heart already belonged to someone else. But this was fine for Ada. If Rimuru was happy, then she should be too. Her situation was similar to Olivier. She was just glad to be able to be with him, and that's all she needed.